Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Joining me today is the journalist, broadcaster, and editorial director at Auto Trader, Erin Baker. Hello, Erin.
Hello, James.
So pleased to have you back with us. It's been quite a while, but yeah, thank you for taking some time to speak to us today.
It's-
Now, one topic we discuss fairly frequently here on Car Dealer Live, but I fear probably not enough, is women in the automotive industry. Now, of course, this is an area where you do a lot of work along with some others. I mean, where do you feel the industry has moved forwards? And the second part to my question is, uh, are there any examples of retailers out there who are really impressing you and making great strides in this area?
So, where do I feel the industry has moved forwards? I think the first thing to recognize, and we're all about positivity these days, but I think the first thing to recognize is it is glacially slow,
Yeah.
the industry's pace and rate of change in this area. We're having the same conversations and we're seeing the same data intrinsically that we were 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And that's consumer data and that's data from within the industry. We're still at roughly 20% of the automotive workforce in the UK being female, still at roughly 10% at board level being female. I did speak to Lisa Brankin at Ford the other day, who said actually they've got almost a 50-50 gender split at Ford. So there are some OEMs where that rate of change is quicker than others and they stand out. Amongst retailer groups, I think it's where I see most change actually. It's where I see certainly most noise and most activity. And I wonder if that's because in the UK there's a freedom that retailer groups have that OEMs, if they're bound by European regulation and management, don't have it. So um, I see amongst the retailer groups, I see a lot of male and female executives and employees from retailers, independent and franchised, at in things like the Automotive 30% Club conference, at Auto Traders retail women in retail lunches that we do. There seems to be far more participation in the conversation and far more ideas flowing. So that's good.
You mentioned there we keep seeing the same data. I mean, one piece of data that tends to sort of crop up a lot is um, the experiences that women have when they're buying a car, and it's still quite traditional and also quite off-putting in a lot of instances. Do you think? I mean, from your point of view, what do you think are the biggest turn-offs women experience when buying a car?
Well, it's, this is fascinating. We're currently doing a massive bit of research into it, Auto Trader, which we're going to hopefully be able to talk about in November. But while we wait to see the data on that, um, again, it won't surprise anyone listening to this to know that certainly anecdotally, the data that I collect via LinkedIn, via the broadcast stuff that I do, women are still finding that they're being patronized or ignored in the bricks and mortar dealerships when they go in to ask for a test drive or ask to have a look around a car. It's still at the kind of rough end of the scale in terms of experiences there. Having said that, when retail moved online to a degree and there was the opportunity to do the whole transaction online, everyone thought this was an opportunity that women were going to jump at because women traditionally have always said they don't trust car dealers, they hate being ignored and patronized. It's such a kind of sexist environment to go car shopping in. But actually, the vast majority of women still want that retailer experience because it's a big purchase, just like men. They still want to go touch it, feel it, stroke it, smell it, lick it, I don't know, and take it for a test drive, So, so certainly bricks and mortar is far from dead for women as a retail experience. So I think that's good news. And so the focus then is on, okay, well then how do we make it a more positive experience and how do we improve it?
Yeah, I mean, also, yeah, advertising comes into this as well, has doesn't it? And historically, it's been male focused. I mean, overtly so. If we look way back, many decades ago. I mean, what's a bit of a tricky question because there probably isn't one simple thing. But what do you think are the things that car makers and dealers could do tomorrow just to make their messaging just that bit more? inclusive and sort of
Mm.
palatable and acceptable for everybody, really.
Well, inclusive is the word,
Mm.
and it's not just women as that are underrepresented in traditional advertising, above the line advertising, out of home, digital, whatever it is. It's all sorts of minorities. Don't forget, women aren't a minority; they're the majority.
Yeah.
But there are so many underrepresented demographics. And I think the simple answer and how to improve that is just as you would say it for other ethnicities, other demographics, have greater representation of those groups of people in the advertising. It really is that straightforward. That's the starting point. That should be the baseline. Put more women, if we're talking about women, put more women in the adverts, put them in positions of power, make sure they're the ones driving the car, not in the passenger seat, all those old fashioned things. But also give them a narrative. Why are they there? What are they doing? I thought a really good example actually in the past, gosh, probably over 12 months now, let's say 2 years, was Ford's Explorer campaign,
Mm.
advertising campaign, because they had to hand that fantastic woman, whose name now escapes me, Dorothy, was it Dorothy, someone
Yeah,
who
I know
went round the
exactly what you
world.
mean. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, whatever it was, 100 years ago, I can't remember. But there she was in her kind of khaki, cool outfit, being a proper explorer. It wasn't somebody they'd had to imagine. It wasn't an influencer they had to pay. It wasn't a woman they'd had to shoehorn into a campaign, and that sticks out a mile, by the way. It was a natural, organic narrative that they had to hand for their brand, and so it just worked. It ticked every box for me.
yeah, no, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I sort of forgotten that speaks volumes, isn't it? I'd actually forgotten that example until you mentioned it. But yeah, that really did that really was quite different, really. But it shouldn't be different. That's the point, isn't it?
No.
But anyway,
Yeah.
right. Let's just look at dealerships and uh,
Mm,
some tips that perhaps viewers watching this could potentially be taken back to their businesses. I mean,
mm.
let's keep it to three quick tips then. I mean, what are the top tips that dealers can use to create a better experience of female buyers in their dealerships?
Yeah. This is where my menopause kicks in because I'm gonna remember two and forget the third, but let's go for it. Let's try. Um, number one number one is just employ more women, just get them out front and center, and that is probably going to mean you're going to have to look at your flexible working policies at your dealership, in your company, because it is more difficult. Women are the primary caregivers, not just for children, but for elderly relatives, whatever. So if that means looking at your HR policies in place and thinking, how can we enable more women to have roles on the sales floor, which is what you need. You need women to be meeting and greeting other women. You need women to be coming with them for company test drives if that's what they want,
Mm.
and so on. So, and talking to fine about them with them about finance as well, crucial. Um, Find more female customers once they've bought a car, and this is particularly apposite for electric, and say to them before they exit stage left with their car, um, would you mind? Is there any chance? Could we ask if you might do some user generated content for us over the first 6 months of your ownership? Would you be willing to do us a monthly video, piece to camera, selfies, a little 500 word blog, anything that they can put out via CRM on their newsletter and so on? Because women buy from other women. Women trust women. They do peer-to-peer recommendations. I wish that women were all reading my reviews and going off that, but they don't. They look at their friends and family and go off that. So, can you get more of your female customers to do more user-generated content? That's second. I told you I'd forget the third, didn't I? But you've got to have basically more women also talking of CRM, doing your customer outreach. Can you get uh, a woman writing your newsletter? Can you get a woman answering a monthly technical question or when I do host She's Electric up and down the country for women with electric cars, we have this safe space, which is really cringy, but it works, which is an hour-long Q&A with me where no question too stupid. Might you put on one of those at your dealership once a month? Because you'd be amazed how quickly loyalty grows. It comes word of mouth, and women, they just want to find someone that they can come back to and be a loyal repeat customer. And isn't that what we all want?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just look at this more broadly, outside of the retail space. I mean, how do you think women are changing car culture more broadly? I mean, whether it's through tech or design or even motorsport.
Yeah. Well, design is a big one. I'm glad you picked up on design because we need, there are a couple of OEMs out there that have female heads of design.
Yeah,
We need more of them because women think differently. Whether it's more spatially, whether it's that they bring other concerns into play. I always remember Linda Jackson at Peugeot, or when she was at Citroën,
yeah,
going down and sitting in, I don't know what it was, looking at a CAD drawing or sitting in one of the pre-prods, and she was saying to the guys, well, where am I going to put my handbag? And that's just a very practical
yeah,
point of view that a man isn't necessarily going to have. So you need a difference. You need everyone represented and in the room when the car is being designed in the first place. So I do think that's a big one. I shy away a bit and slightly raise my eyebrows about the motorsport question
mm,
because wonderful if we have the W Series, when we get our first female racing driver into Formula One. They're great moments to celebrate, but do they shift the dial? I don't believe they do because motorsport is a niche sport for everyone,
mm,
men and women. It has of course, it has a huge global following, but
yeah,
it's not as big as far as I understand it, as football. It's not as big as a lot of other cultural mindsets. It's not going to get your average Joe or your average Joanna out there who just needs a new car under 10 grand to get her from A to B. She doesn't care what's happening in Formula One. It's not going to influence her decision on what she buys next. And that's what I'm interested in.
yeah. From your perspective personally, I mean, you've had a very distinguished career in journalism. That's how I know you. You're a broadcaster. You do a lot of digital media and all those kinds of things. I mean, what has kept you passionate about championing women in the automotive space?
I think it's that when we're not making much progress. And I think
Mm,
somebody needs to call it out as it is. We're not. And it's ludicrous and it's mortifying. And I don't
yeah,
know why more people aren't embarrassed and jumping up and down about this. Because as an industry, as a vertical, as a sector, I look around and I don't see any other industry that has such a disparity between its customer base, which is 46% female in this country, at least. If you look in the States, 63% of cars are bought by women, the majority. We're not even a minority, we're the majority end user of this product. But everyone's still designing, engineering, marketing, selling, doing whatever in the entire supply chain, predominantly are still male. And the only other place I see that happening really is finance. I don't know the figures in finance, but it wouldn't surprise me if finance is in a better place than us. And the only thing that's going to save us in the long run is the product itself, which is electrifying. And by electrifying, we're no longer able to just sell cars on powertrain, oversteer, limited slip differential, whatever it might be. We now have to sell cars around sustainability, carbon footprints, recycled materials. And that opens up the conversation. And I'm afraid I think it is that which will inevitably mean more women coming into this industry than the glacially slow rate at which we're moving pipelines.
yeah. Well, you sort of answered my last question, which was, let's try and have a bit of positivity, hopefully, and look to the future over the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, what
Yeah.
are the opportunities for women, and how different is it going to be in 10 years' time? I agree with you. It is down to the product and having a major shift in the types of cars that we are driving, the kinds of cars that we're transacting. Ultimately it is the product. The industry is not broken, but it's a big juggernaut that's taking a very long time to turn around, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's incumbent on all of us. I am, it's not to say, yeah, here's a positive note to end on. I am having very positive conversations and more positive conversations with more women than I ever was before. And by that, I mean more women in their 60s, 50s, and 40s who are desperately trying to work out how to open up the pipeline for women coming into the industry and also how to retain the women already in the industry and lead them into executive roles. You look at the work Julia Muir is doing around 30% Club. You look at all these women who are making strides and are starting to turn the tide. It's just that it's slow. But I think in the meantime, one of the crucial things I would say to men and women in the industry is please get out into schools, get out to universities, because every time I talk to girls at school and university about a career in motoring journalism, they still think it involves putting on oily rags and getting underneath the car and
Yeah.
I don't know, changing something with a spanner. And when I say no, it's about sustainability. You could write for Vogue or Marie Claire. There are all these different things you can do. Their eyes light up, and that's a crying shame. So, knowledge is power.
Yeah. Brilliant. I'm glad we've ended with a positive note. So thank you for that. I'm going to have to bring it to a close though. But for today, Erin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, James.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye bye.